I can hear you, Zoe. So lovely. This session is also being recorded and will be available on our safeguarding webinar pages. So I'll hand over to you now, Zoe. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. So morning, everybody, and thank you for coming along to our New Roads webinar. My name is Zoe Murray and I'm the practice coach for New Roads. And with me today, I've got Roxanne. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Roxy. We can't hear you, Roxy. I'm not sure if you're having an issue with your mute button, but Roxanne is also a practice coach. And then we have Mary with us too, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Mary.
Good morning, I'm Mary Costello. I'm a team manager at the Norwich Hub for New Roads.
Thank you. So to start with, what I'm going to ask is if you could just write in the chat function what school you're from and also to scale yourselves on your knowledge of New Roads. So 10 is you're an absolute expert and 0 is today is the first time you've heard the word New Roads. So if you'd be happy to do that in the chat section, that would be great. So whilst people are doing that, I'll just
Sorry, Zoe, we've completely lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So what we'd like to do this morning is to introduce you to the New Roads model. We'll talk about what approach in dealing with risk called the RAISE process. So we'll share some information about RAISE and we'll have a look at a case study of that approach. And then finally, we'd like to finish by having a discussion on how we can all work together to ensure the best outcomes for our young people. We can't hear you at the moment, Roxy. I'm not sure if you're having issues with your mic. Okay, so Roxy could be having some issues. So some of you here may be familiar with No Wrong Door, and that was created by North Yorkshire Children's Services in 2015. And New Roads is the Norfolk model of this. So it's an integrated service and it's a new approach in the way that we support our young people who are aged between 12 to 25 and are in or on the edge of care. So what New Roads is bringing is a new way of us working together across children's services with a range of services, support and accommodation options and a team of specialists who work together through a shared practice framework. And the new model is designed to provide intensive short-term interventions to prevent young people coming into care, escalation to long-term care, to prevent placement breakdown or to facilitate placement step-downs. Norfolk County Council, we've received £5 million in funding to implement and embed the service, and we are doing this with the support of our colleagues in North Yorkshire. So here we have our management team, and I know we've got a hub manager here, so Mary can talk you through who else is in her team.
Yeah, hi. So in the Norwich Hub, we have Susan Lovelock, who's the Deputy Manager for Outreach. We have Catherine Bibb, who's the Deputy Manager for Residential. And then we have another hub, which is based over in Durham, and Emma Ellesmere is the manager for that. Taff Endoro is the Deputy Manager for Outreach, and Rebecca Fisk for Residential.
And as you can see here, we have a visual of one of the hubs. So Mary will be able to talk you through everything that you can see in this diagram.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone can hear an echo. I'm just waiting for my colleague to plug her headphone in. Sorry about that noise. So I'm just going to start with the practitioners that we do have based in the hub, and they're on the right-hand side of our screen. So the New Roads model works within a multi-agency team. So we have a speech and language therapist that's based here. We also have a police liaison officer. We have a life coach who is a clinical psychologist. And we also have our 2 deputy managers and myself. And it's the same in the hub that's based in Norwich, that's based in Durham. We also have within that portfolio leads, which are some of our residential practitioners, and they take on specific leads within things like education and employment, for example, homeless support, safeguarding. Attached to the hub, then we have placements in the community, and we have foster placements that are attached to us, and sometimes the foster carers come and work within the hub. So the idea is that they get to meet the young people, and there's a smoother transition then for them out into the community to live within family-based care. We also have high needs supported accommodation, host families. So that's when young people are aged 16 and above will go and stay with a family in the community, but they would also have that added level of independence within that. We will have the supported accommodation, and for Norwich that means we're going to have 2 flats that are attached to us just up the road actually, that will be ready in September. So again, our young people who are a little bit older, 16 plus, will be able to move into the flats but have the support from the workers within the hub. I think that's everything on there. Zoe, thanks.
Thank you. I just want to check.
I don't think we can hear you, Zoe.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a few microphone issues. So what you can see here are these are the New Roads principles and commitments that make sure that we're staying true to the model. So on the left-hand side, we have our 10 distinguishers, and they make sure that the model stays true to its vision and its aims. So some of the ones there are the high stickability of the key worker and the no heads on beds culture. So if our hub is empty, that's absolutely okay. Next, we have our 8 non-negotiables. So there are values, our principles, and our ways of working. So some of those are seeing residential as a short-term intervention and not a long-term solution, and bringing young people into New Roads quickly, but moving them on slowly. And then finally, our 5 provocations, which practitioners should be keeping in mind when working any case. And some of those are, would this be good enough for my child? And most importantly, are we managing organisational risk or risk for the child? So what I'd like to do now is just show you a short video that will allow you to see everything that we've just discussed put into practice.
No Wrong Door for Alex. This animation has been developed to illustrate how the multidisciplinary team works together around a young person in the hub. What this cannot show is the complex mix of issues affecting young people like Alex. Alex is 13. Lately, she has been feeling like life is a daily battle with everyone around her. Everyone in the family can get really angry. When things get on top of them, they take it out on each other. Alex can then turn this on herself and harm herself. The family can't see how they can keep living together like this. A social worker visits her family. They decide together that they all need some time apart. Alex doesn't want to try and live with another family in foster care, so the social worker tells them about the No Wrong Door hub. He says it's like a family of young people and supportive staff where Alex will be able to take some time for herself and explore different opportunities in a safe space before trying to return home. Alex agrees to this, and after some calls, it's all arranged for her to go to the hub. Alex is a little worried about going to live there. So the social worker arranges for a residential and edge of care worker to come and meet her. They go out for something to eat and share some positive time together doing fun activities. She tells Alex a little bit more about the hub and is very chatty and positive. Alex really likes her. They agree that she will be Alex's key worker while she is living at the hub. She says that they will develop a timeline and plan of action together to help Alex feel confident about her future. When she arrives, Alex's key worker tells her to see the hub as just like a home away from home. Alex meets the other members of the team. One of them is, apparently, from the police, though he doesn't seem like a police officer. Over the next few weeks, lots of things happen. One day, the communication support worker comes along in the car to school. They've explained they are going to spend the day with Alex in lessons to try and help to understand why she might be feeling angry a lot of the time. At the end of the day, Alex's key worker takes her out to celebrate how well she's been doing. In the car on the way back to the hub, they all sing along to a song they like on the radio and laugh at how none of them can hold a tune. Sometimes Alex still gets angry. One time, Alex discovered someone had eaten all of her favourite snacks. She completely exploded and emptied the whole fridge of food onto the floor. When she was angry, the residential workers helped Alex to feel safe by moving her away to a calmer area and giving her some space to calm down. Later, one of the workers, who is a life coach, comes to speak to Alex. They talk together about what happened earlier and about anger in general. They discuss some strategies Alex can use to stop her losing control, hurting herself and others. Alex liked being able to talk about her feelings, and they agree to speak more regularly. The life coach says that they don't have to wait for their planned time together, and he is available if Alex needs to talk. He also reassures Alex that when she goes home to live with her family, she can keep seeing him, as well as the communication support worker. The police liaison officer realises that Alex enjoys table football and often invites her to play. During their 10th match against each other, they start a conversation about anger and violence and what can happen if people get too angry. Alex actually finds it interesting to hear about these things from a police perspective. All the different workers hold a raise meeting to talk about Alex's risk and what might help her. The communication support worker thinks that Alex has some signs of autism spectrum disorder, and the life coach agrees. The police liaison officer has some concerns about Alex being criminalised due to her anger. The social worker is also present and has some worries about Alex returning home. They agree Alex is really bright and has potential to achieve academically, but certain environments and demands cause her to lash out. The team talks together so they can understand Alex better. They then make a plan of how they can work with Alex and her family to better manage the risks and help the family reunite. Each member of the multidisciplinary team has a part to play in this plan. Over the next few weeks, Alex and her family are supported by the hub and multidisciplinary team to build up their relationship, and Alex is supported to move home. Things aren't always great at home, but Alex and her family know where they can get help if they need it, and they feel more confident to be able to work through any issues, because now they have the support of the hub team. This animation has been created for the Strengthening Families Protecting Children programme, funded by the Department for Education.
I'm relying on you to nod before I jump into my next bit. Can you hear me?
You're really robotic, Zoe. I think it's just your connection.
Can you hear me now? Do I sound human again?
It's dipping in and out, Zoe. It's not entirely clear.
And if it's very unclear, then
So Zoe, I don't know if it's frozen because the screen's the same and
Can you hear me now?
yep.
Excellent. Sorry about this, everybody. So I'm hoping that watching that video gave you a taste of the true multi-agency working in action, and you were able to see how the team wraps around a young person. So, for example, we had the communication support worker who came into school to observe Alex, the police liaison officer who spent time with her in the hub and also allowed Alex to see the police in a different light. You have a key worker who could bring Alex to school. So if we've got a young person who's reluctant to attend or they're running late, then the key worker can do that. And the key worker is at the heart of this. So they're sticking with that young person throughout their journey, and they're being supported by the rest of the team in that primary relationship. But we want this multi-agency working to go wider than the different roles in the hub, and we want that to filter out to all of our partner agencies. So if there's an issue with Alex at school or you have concerns, then you can contact the hub manager or the key worker. And equally, if Alex has had a bad evening at the hub, then the key worker would be calling the school to make you aware. So now we've discussed the model and the importance of the multi-agency working, I'd like to follow on by introducing a new approach to managing risk, and that's called RAISE. So during all of our conversations around new roads, we talk a lot about risk and how our approach to this is going to change. One of our 5 provocations is, are we managing organisational risk or risk for the child? And for us to confidently say it's the latter, we need a child-focused, strengths-based approach and a commitment to risk management. So what that means is accepting that we can't just remove risk for young people because they're young people, it's in their nature to take risks, but instead we need it to be mitigated and managed by working with and alongside that young person. So this, of course, can be uncomfortable at times, and professionals who are involved will need to be brave and well-reasoned, and that's where we're bringing in the RAISE approach to support in managing risk. I just want to check you can still hear me. And Mary, if you can just nod, I can see your camera. Excellent. So RAISE stands for Risk, Analysis, Intervention, Solutions and Evaluation, and it will be used to assess and manage risk for young people who are resident within the hubs and situations where there's an identified or escalating risk that needs a more urgent or robust response. So RAISE is multi-agency, intelligence-led and psychologically informed approach to risk, and it brings together the key professionals in a young person's life so that they can consider risk on behalf of that young person and then agree a plan of interventions and support to help manage and reduce those identified risks. What RAISE does is it takes into account any plans that we've already got and any multi-agency forums that are already happening, and it just complements those. So RAISE will only be used for a small number of young people who are staying at the hub and who we feel are at the highest risk. It doesn't replace any other plans or existing processes, it just builds upon and complements those. And RAISE plans are specifically targeted to a risk or situation, and they are not a replacement to the overall care planning for a young person. So what we want to do now is have a look at a case study of a young person called Maria. And our reasons for taking the RAISE approach is so we can manage the uncertainty together. We can use the multi-agency intelligence to look past her behaviour, take a contextual view, and so all the partners that are around the table can be brave together regarding holding and managing that risk for Maria.
We all know a Maria, though he or she might have a different name. 17 years old, in care, and lives in a children's home. She likes drugs and hates rules and boundaries. She's in a relationship with the love of her life, but he hits her. And she goes missing for days at a time because she'd rather live on the streets than in a children's home. So how do you solve the problem of Maria? Use RAISE. RAISE stands for Risk, Analysis, Intervention, Solution, and Evaluation. It's a multi-agency, intelligence-led approach to risk management. As one hub manager from North Yorkshire put it, it's about working together with risk, however hard, and sharing the fears. Gathering good intelligence and sending the young person a clear, honest message with a safe and caring plan which is flexible and regularly reviewed and updated. It's a commitment to keep the child at the centre of every decision to ensure we're acting for their benefit and not that of the professional agencies. The approach understands that there is risk and that this needs to be mitigated and managed, not simply removed. The lives of teenagers are not black and white. We need to work in the grey. We need to be willing to be brave and innovative, and to employ safe uncertainty to help the young person navigate and learn from the risks in their lives. Maria's risk levels really worried us. Traditional risk management methods of missing reports to police, sanctioning and trying to educate about the dangers were having no impact and were only driving her further away. We needed to think differently. Within No Wrong Door, we gathered the best intelligence we could from the people who knew Maria best. Alongside her social worker and other members of her care team, we liaised with the police, residential care staff, clinical psychologist life coach, and speech and language therapist. We brought this intelligence to RAISE, threw out our plan and started again. Collectively, we realised we'd lost sight of Maria. We weren't listening to what she was trying to tell us. Gradually, Maria had become a problem that we were trying to fix, rather than a vulnerable young person in need of understanding, love, and support. Using the specialist skills within the multi-agency group, particularly the life coach and communication worker, we were able to look past the behaviours to see Maria again. By listening to Maria, we were able to establish what was driving her. She found belonging and understanding with her friends, even though she knew they were dangerous. She felt safer with them because she didn't trust adults. So, we focused on how to help Maria trust us and how we could invest in forming relationships with her. We made this plan and shared it with Maria. If Maria met us once every 24 hours, we could take her food and make sure she had credit on her phone. Then we wouldn't report her missing to the police. This could be extended to 48 hours, provided she was in contact with us via phone. We would make sure her room in the home remained exactly how she wanted it, and that no one would go in there when she wasn't there. We would go to Maria to meet her, meaning she didn't need to keep coming back to the home. And if Maria needed help, we would be there, no matter where or when. Did it work? No, not straight away. But as we kept our promises to her, Maria began to trust us. And then, at 4 a.m. on a bitterly cold winter night, she rang us. She'd had enough of living on the streets and called for help. We collected her, brought her home, and cared for her. We had demonstrated our commitment to her, and in return, she began to let us in. We could begin to build more meaningful relationships with her. She stayed at the home more, until eventually there were no more episodes of going missing, and she saw the hub as her home. And when we asked her why she had started to trust us, she said, "Because you've given me a bit of leeway. Before, you were ringing the police and reporting me missing, and it was stupid. And it makes you want to rebel more. RAISE gave us the intelligence we needed to understand Maria and the bravery to stand together with her and hold the risk. Without this, Maria would have continued to live on the streets, vulnerable and in danger, instead of feeling part of a home and a family. Next time you have a problem with your own Maria, remember, be brave together and use the RAISE approach."
So Mary, if you could kindly give me a thumbs up if you...
That was pretty broken up again, Zoe.
How about now? Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Excellent. So there are some things on that video that weren't shown that contributed towards professionals' decision making around Maria's risk. So the first is that the police were part of the RAISE meeting, and the police intelligence analysts, based on all of the intel and information they gathered, was able to come up with a network map for Maria, and that listed friends, family and associates, modes of transport she'd taken, places she'd been found, and the police could also share a rough demographic of where they knew Maria had been sighted. So it wasn't honed in on, but they'd used intelligence. They were in touch with the transport police because they know that she was getting the train. And also in that video, we saw some of the other professionals that were around the table. So we had the allocated social worker, the life coach, the communication support worker, all whom would have spent time with Maria in the hub. And when we discuss sharing intelligence in a RAISE meeting, we're talking about soft intelligence too. So what did the hub worker observe when they were having dinner last night? Has the residential worker noticed that Maria acts differently in small groups compared to large? So those observations that might not necessarily be reported on any system, but they've just been picked up on. So they can use all of that, and then they'll use the multi-agency skills to dig deeper and gain an understanding of what's driving Maria's behaviours. And the intelligence that they gathered within that meeting enabled them to ascertain the risk of not reporting Maria missing and taking a different approach. So we've just followed through the RAISE process for Maria, and I'm just going to recap a few reminders. So RAISE isn't a standalone event, it's part of a young person's journey through care. It must always align with the context and care plan for a young person. So what's already in place in our current process does not change, which is building on and complementing that with RAISE. RAISE doesn't replace strategy discussions. The aim is for RAISE to be begun in a much more ad hoc way, so it's not a formal child planning meeting. It could be that the key worker comes back to the hub and says to the hub manager, I'm feeling really worried about Maria. And they say, right, who's here? Let's have a talk and let's start tasking colleagues with that upfront work to begin the RAISE process. As we said earlier, it's not just intelligence, but it's those observations too. So looking at what could be triggers, what could be indicators for that young person's behaviour. And RAISE is only for a handful of young people who are staying at the hub and who we feel are at the highest risk. So we have had concerns raised in previous meetings that ensuring young people's voices are heard. And the idea of RAISE is that we're creating an open and honest environment to discuss risk. So North Yorkshire shared with us when they were discussing the risk to Maria in their RAISE meeting, they said, right, the biggest risk here is that Maria could die. So this isn't appropriate to discuss in front of a young person. We're also sharing really sensitive intelligence, but it's the job of all of the professionals around the table to bring that young person's voice to the meeting and make it feel like they're there, to gather their views beforehand and bring that to the meeting, and always consider that. And any plan that's made in a RAISE meeting will be immediately shared with the young person. It might need to be tweaked, but we know that the plan's only going to be as effective as the young person makes it through their engagement with it. So this morning we've gone over the model in more detail. You've seen a visual of the hub, you've seen the different roles that are there, the different accommodation options, the multi-agency support that we're providing. We've introduced you to our new RAISE management team. We've taken a look at a new approach to managing risk, keeping in mind the provocation of, are we managing risk for the organisation or for the child? And before we move to questions and a group discussion, I'd just like to cover the outcomes that we hope to achieve with new RAISE, and also show you the achievements of No Wrong Door in North Yorkshire 5 years after they've introduced the model. So with the introduction of new RAISE, we hope to have young people spending less time in residential settings, fewer children there on a long-term basis. So really switching that view of seeing residential as a short-term intervention only and not a long-term solution. By managing the risk and completing outreach work, we want to prevent young people coming into local authority care, keep them in the community, give them the right to a family life. We want to keep them near their friends, near their family. And by wrapping that team of support around a young person, giving them access to the right services when they need it, we hope to prevent missing episodes, arrests, and hospital admissions. And these changes will in time save some money. However, New Roads isn't about saving money. It's about preventing some of those costs and using that money more effectively for the young people that we work with. So at the start of the webinar, we mentioned that we are completing New Roads with the support of North Yorkshire. And I'd just like to highlight to you the impact that they've had 5 years after introducing the no wrong door model. So you can see that there's some really powerful statistics there. So an 87% reduction in missing episodes, a 96% reduction in the use of independent fostering agencies, a 30% reduction in exclusions from school, and 80% of young people were in education, employment or training. So now you hopefully know the model a little bit more. We'd like to just open the floor to have a conversation about how you feel we can work together to deliver the best outcomes for young people. So you're welcome to unmute or to put any questions in the chat. Does anyone have any questions about anything that they've seen in the presentation?
Hi Zoe, you've got one question in the chat from Claire Neve asking if there's a team for the Great Yarmouth area. So you've obviously described how you've got a Norwich hub and a Durham hub, but will they cover the whole of Norfolk?
Mary, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so at the moment we will cover the whole of Norfolk, and the idea is that we've got one central email referral route. All of the referrals come into the central office and then we allocate them to either Norwich or Durham, but it's to cover the whole county.
Mary, just to be clear, schools can't refer in, can they? It will be from where will your referrals come from? From social workers?
Yeah, absolutely, from social workers. So if you have a child obviously in your school, you would go centrally to CADS, I suppose, if it was an initial concern. And then once they're allocated a social worker, the social workers would refer into us. Can you still hear me? Hello?
Hi Mary, yes, we can still hear you. So Claire Gallen is asking, how does a young person become identified as needing to be included in a scheme? But I guess you kind of talked about how it is for young people who are at the edge of care or in care, and that it would be that a referral would come through a social worker where those needs are identified.
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose you would just follow your general safeguarding process, and any concerns about a young person in your school would be shared with CADS, and then CADS will refer on to the social work teams, whether that's for a child in need or a safeguarding child protection social work team. Any more questions?
Mary, I can't see any more at the moment. I don't know if anyone's feeling brave and wants to unmute themselves and ask any questions directly. I think it sounds like a really exciting service to really improve things for young people.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question rather than type one. I was mid-typing, but it'll be much quicker to just ask it. I was just wondering about help for either the foster family or the birth family before reunification takes place, just because it wasn't talked about specifically, but I'd be interested to know what provision there is there.
Yeah, of course. So I suppose both of the hubs kind of have two models of practice that we're working towards, but the overall goal is for no young people to be living within the hub. So the idea is to support children to stay at home with their families, or if they do come into the hubs, it's for a short amount of time, and we're looking at family-based placements such as foster care. So our workers in both hubs do go into families and offer support and outreach to the children and to the parents where it's needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary, again, Claire, who works in a secondary school in the Great Yarmouth area, has said that the Great Yarmouth area have been allocated a social work team for those young people that are high risk CCE, CSE. Again, I think that is a team that, whilst they're in the Yarmouth area, I think they're also county-wide, aren't they?
Yeah, so that is a county-wide team, I think, of social workers, like a FAST team, so a safeguarding team, who are specifically working with young people who are at high risk of exploitation. So we work really closely alongside them, and if they identify any young people that they're working with in the community that they need extra support with, or that might need some time in the hub, they do refer into us.
Sorry, it's Claire Neve. Thank you for that. I was just going to put a thing in the chat. Yeah, I'm aware. That's the only reason I'd heard of the New Roads, is that we've obviously been working with a new team that are working, but I don't know how widely. I thought we were going to hear about that today, as in they were linked in, but I take it that's a different link, is it?
Yeah, so I mean, although they're specifically working with young people who are at high risk of exploitation, it's no different to any of the other social work teams, really, in the sense of how they will refer into us. So it's for any teams where they think that those children and families need outreach support or need a hub bed, they will all refer in the same way.
Thank you.
So Claire and anybody else, it's Claire Farrelly, just to clarify, if you do have any concerns that a young person may be at risk of exploitation of any kind, you can call CADS and request a screening, which can be a CCE or CSE screening, and they'll talk through what that young person is experiencing, and there'll be a risk assessment, a risk level allocated at the end of it, which will help identify what level of support and intervention is needed, if any. Usually if you're calling in, you've got some reason to be ringing in, so that service is available through CADS. I don't know if anyone has any further questions before we bring the session to a close. This session today has been recorded, so it will be available on our DSL webinar section of our safeguarding web pages. And for those that have attended today, Lucy Canning will circulate the PowerPoint that the team have provided. So we'll just see if there's any final last questions that people may have, or anything else that Mary and the team want to raise before we finish today's session.
No, I don't have anything else really. I suppose from our perspective with education, certainly when we have young people that move into the hub, we will be working very closely if they're at your school, so you will receive quite a lot of communication from us. And if there were really any high risk concerns, then we would invite you to one of those raise meetings as well. So it would be great if people are available to be involved in those processes if they do come up. Anything else from you, Zoe?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, excellent. I wondered, Mary, if you just wanted to share, when we talked through the hub visual, about the higher level teaching assistant that's going to be in the hubs.
Yeah, so I think that is a job vacancy at the moment, so it is going to be advertised, but we did have a worker in that post previously, so they are attached to the virtual school, and the idea is that if we have young people in the hubs or actually in any of our children's homes who are not in full-time education, that teaching assistant is able to visit the homes and do some work with those young people, but also link really closely to the schools that they're on roll with. So that was a really, really important job role actually, and had some real successes for some of our young people in reintegrating them back into education and making sure that they stayed on the right track with getting work done when they weren't there. So hopefully we will be able to recruit to that really soon.
Excellent, thanks Mary. Apart from that, I think we've covered everything, and like Claire said, we will circulate the slides so you'll be able to see everything in more detail that we've talked about this morning.
Great.
Fantastic. I suggest then, if there's no more questions, that we draw the session to a close and people can have an extra 15 minutes to use with their time. So thank you very much indeed to the team for attending today, and for all of the participants who've come from various schools around the county. And please do feel free to signpost the session onto your colleagues if you feel that it would be beneficial to them within your own school or other schools, because they will be able to watch the video. Thank you ever so much indeed.
Great, thanks everyone, take care.